Activate your energy.
Welcome to the Activated Authors Podcast, a show where we distill the core principles of what it takes to become a happy, healthy, and productive author, no matter what stage of the journey you're at. I'm your host, Daniel Willcocks. I'm an international best-selling author, as well as an author coach, speaker, and creative entrepreneur. But most importantly, I'm a lifelong student of all things productivity, psychology, and human behaviour. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Without further ado, let's dive in. What is up, Activators? And welcome back to another episode of the Activated Authors Podcast with myself, Daniel Willcocks, and here with me every single week is...
It's Sam Frost, me. Hello.
Hello, Sam Frost, me. Hello, how are you?
Oh, shit. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I am slowly processing stuff and trying to find order in what is chaos, which is interesting and exciting and scary and not nice, and a whole raft of things. Like, I am hardcore looking down the how do I shrink to maximize route, because I am fully embracing the fact that I have for a long time, despite how much I've been dropping off like different bits of work that I've been doing, still doing too much. So I am looking at that and trying to like figure out the best thing to do, trying to look out the best way to spend my time and my energy with my work, and making small progress.
That's positive.
Yeah. I managed to write some words this morning, which, checking my word tracker, I haven't since the 1st of February. So, and even then it's been intermittent for the past few months. So who knows if it'll be a chain that'll carry on, but that's what I'm going to go for. I've got like a few short story markets that I want to try and reach out for, and a few different things just to tackle. I'm really happy with what I wrote this morning. It's horrible.
Well, yep. I mean, it's horror.
But it works very, very well. I think it's a really cool idea. I'll tell you about it afterwards. Like, okay. Yeah, it's fun. What's something you've enjoyed this week?
So yeah, I've been thinking about this because it's difficult for me at the minute, just because I'm kind of like on all levels struggling. It's not a good time for me, mentally or physically, or just kind of any of the areas that are in those circles that you put your numbers in and then get a weird shape. And so I've been relying a lot on kind of like comfort shows, and like re-listening to books that I've listened to 100 times. And there isn't any one specific show or book that like I particularly want to say this is the thing, because it's not them in particular, more that like it's a background that one is comforting because I know all of the parts and there's no surprises or anything. So I find comfort in that because I can relax. And two, when I start doing this, I know that something's really wrong. So it's a weird way. It's a weird thing to say, something I've enjoyed this week, because obviously it's pointed something out to me, but I guess the reason I'm saying I enjoyed it is that it's proof of kind of how far I've come in knowing that what my like signs are, what my danger signs are, and all of the rest of it. So yeah, it's been a struggle, and it remains to be. But it's just about now kind of trying to figure out what is causing me so much pain, I guess, and to feel so unwell. So yeah, it's not exactly the most exciting or uplifting, but that's where I'm at. How about you?
Is one of the books you've been listening to Robert Jordan?
No.
Oh, because I'm making my way through that now.
Yeah.
And it has, I've been meaning to say to you, it's got a remarking amount of parallels to one of my favorite books.
Yes, I know.
They've just gone over the Brandywine Bridge
Yeah.
along Buckleberry Ferry.
Yeah. With Merry and Pippin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the Nazgul have coveted the sun.
Hmm.
As I'm listening to it, I'm like,
It does get very apart from it, I will say.
okay.
But yeah, I know I had the first time I was listening to it, I was like, this is I didn't put Lord of the Rings on, did I?
Uh-huh.
Like this
Uh-huh.
a weird like first draft version.
Yeah. Because if you say orc as if you're throwing up, it's Trolloc.
Yeah.
So, well, I do
Yeah.
quite like the Trollocs. They're quite cool.
Yeah, they're nasty.
They're nasty, Mr.
Yeah, they're
Baggins.
real
That's not a
nasty.
Gollum. A really camp Gollum. Nasty. What's something I've enjoyed? I went on a little road trip with my little one last week
Yes, you
and
did.
visited the 9 states of Nazareth.
Hmm.
So went down, saw yourself and saw Miles and saw my buddy Lewis in Southend and saw my brother and saw things and had a whale of a time. So it was nice being able to take him around and do some different things because like where I live at the minute, there's not a whole lot to do locally. So we do a lot of the same things sort of regularly. So it was nice to kind of go out and do something different and make something of the half term. So
Yeah.
yeah, and the really cool thing of that trip was what I discovered and he enjoyed that David Tennant does the audiobook for House of Train Your Dragon on
Hmm.
Spotify that you can listen to if you're a premium member. And so he started listening to his first audiobook with myself. And it is so different to the films.
Yeah.
Like you really look at it and go, how did the book become the film?
Mm.
Because even like the characters in the film are named after characters in the book, but they're not the same.
Mm.
And like some of the dragons are named differently, and there's all these cross references that just it's like someone took it, broke it, and then rebuilt it in just their own way.
That's what it means when they say based on.
Yeah, but normally with those kind of like kids books and stuff, when it's based on it's even if it's a little different, it's somewhat close.
Yeah.
Like they're each fantastic in their own way, and
Hmm.
like I see why they had to do what they had to do. But yeah, it's just very interesting. And David Tennant is a masterful narrator.
Yeah.
He said in poor Scottish. What was our word of the week, Sam?
Gubbins.
Gubbins. What was Gubbins?
Gubbins is I don't have the definition up in front of me, so I shall do my best to say it without reading it off. Gubbins is basically anything or anyone that doesn't make sense or that is silly or weird or can be used as a catch-all for when you can't remember the name of something, whether it's like tech or useless things around the home, basically.
Yeah. Did it come with the Gubbins?
Did it
The
come?
the
Yeah.
Gubbins.
Yeah, the Gubbins. Or
The
pass
Gubbins.
me it. The bloody Gubbins. Everyone has their own has their own word, I think, that's close to that. Like for one of my exes apparently never used to know what a spatula was called for ages, like growing up, like as a kid, and would always forget and could never like remember. And then the one time it stuck, that's now the word he uses for anything that he can't remember the name for. The spatula thing.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice. I just say the thing.
Mm?
Just pass me the thing.
The thing. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you know, the thing. The
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. Did you use it successfully?
Well, did you? It was my word, so I should be asking
Oh
you.
yeah, I used it successfully. I
Nice.
said I used it on both my parents in one conversation. It was a double
Nice.
whammy, and neither of them picked up on it.
Yeah.
Can't remember the exact context, but sat there, shot it at them, and nothing, nothing.
Yeah, I used it with my sister. She was showing me something that she had. And I said, "Oh, is there many other of those gubbins around or um she was like, "No, it's mostly just and then the conversation continued.
Have you explained to her since?
No.
Interesting.
You can't tell people afterwards that they've been part of an experiment.
You can.
Well, you can, but you're an idiot if you do.
Yeah, this is true. So successful on both parts,
Yeah.
which means
What
we
is the word of
now.
the week? Daniel.
I like this one a lot, mostly because it's quite a fun one, but also the meaning I think is very, very useful in many ways.
Okay.
Although I do believe this is going to be a hard one to slip in. Giggity. That's what she said. This week's word is snollygoster.
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 Lovely.
And snollygoster is a shrewd, unprincipled person, especially a politician.
I honestly thought you were about to say, especially a female.
Especially one
Usually
of them
when,
wicked women.
usually it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm impressed. It's especially a politician. Say the word again. Snollygoster.
Snollygoster.
That's a very lovely word.
Snollygoster. I'll send it over to you now so you've got it. Doop, doop, doop. Da, da. Snollygoster. Bam.
This is riveting for everyone
I know.
listening and
I know.
watching. There we go. Oh, look, it popped up. There we go.
Bam. Like the
Snollygoster.
magic of technology. I think so. The minute I saw that word, multiple names sprung to my head.
Yeah, I can imagine the first one.
Uh-huh. Snollygoster.
Uh-huh.
Snollygoster. So that is our word of the week. Feel free to attempt it at home if you want to try it on people. And obviously the whole trick is to be able to slip it into a conversation without anyone asking what that word means.
Yeah, good luck with Snollygoster. This is going to
Snollygoster.
be.
You have to find it snollygoster to snollygoster, snollygoster.
You just hurt my brain,
Yeah.
and
Just
I
a
don't appreciate it.
just a titty nope. Just a titty nope. Can you how many of the words can you recap?
Oh, please, none of them. Like,
Remember
if you say them to me, bumfuzzled, wasn't that one?
bumfuzzled,
Yeah,
titty nope.
yeah.
What was the one in bed nice and warm and cozy?
Oh, yeah. I can't remember.
I have to relook that one up. But yeah,
Yeah,
making a whole little dictionary of stuff here.
yeah.
Okay, so over into this week's win from the community, and we go straight to our number one, Miss Faye Trask, who has finally
Hey,
picked a launch date for her next book. So congratulations, Faye. Very, very exciting because we all know that once you pick the date, shit gets real when you start to panic. But it's well overdue. So I'm looking forward to that being added to my bookshelf on top of the people watching on YouTube, her first book, Word
yeah.
Legacy, Faye Trask. So check it out. I'm pretty sure our website is fayetrask.com if you want to go over and find out more about Faye.
She's awesome.
She's pretty cool. She's pretty damn cool. So over into this week's question and this week's
Which is
topic: how to build high word counts, and indeed, if you should.
yeah, that's the question that it should be.
Yeah. So this question is very much on my mind at the minute because as a recovering high word counter, I feel like this is one of the hot topics that kind of covers no matter what stage of writing you're at. It's always about the word counts. How many words did you write today? Oh my God, that person writes this much per hour. Oh, that word person has written this much. Oh, I barely write anything. And I kind of want to dispel a couple of those myths, speak a little bit of my own experience. And obviously, you're someone that can hit some pretty high word counts as well. So to get your perspective on this too. But I find myself in a position where a couple of years ago, I was doing a lot of ghostwriting. Writing was pretty much like my sole thing that I had to do. And so I could easily get anywhere between 4,000, 8,000 word days kind of quite happily.
They were your normal days.
They were my normal days. I'd go out sort of in the morning, write for about 3 or 4 hours and come back with anywhere from 4 to 8,000 words in a day, which obviously can rack up quite quickly. And hence why I made a pretty decent living as a ghostwriter.
Yeah.
But now I'm readjusting how I view my writing and trying to figure out a way to get back in because it's been a while since I've hit those high word counts. And although I know that I can, if I really kind of hit the keyboards, I am very much in the stage of reminding myself that I need to build up to it again and re-find that stamina and just find that groove and find the things that are working because a lot has kind of changed. I've fallen out of a lot of habits. And so how do you start from zero and get to building higher word counts? And I guess I'll throw in my first point here, which is set a baseline.
Yeah.
So what I would recommend, something I'm doing now, because I already yesterday was like, I'm going to write 2 hours a day. And then I started writing this morning. I was like, I'm exhausted already after like 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So set a baseline basically means find out what your word count is and find out how fast you can write now. So to do that, what I would recommend is, again, very, very good as you're just starting. If you're trying to reset a habit, this is useful too. Pick a time of the day, set a timer for 15 minutes, that time of the day every day, and just write. Doesn't have to be a book, doesn't have to be anything particular, just free flow, just spurt of consciousness, just to try and get an idea of roughly how many words you can kind of get in that time itself. Once you've done that, fingers off the keyboard, leave it, record that information. And after a week, or if you want to do it 2 weeks, what you can then do is look at what your kind of average word count is over that time.
Mm-hmm.
So 15 minutes, say 200, 300 words, you know that you can get 300 words in a 15-minute sprint. And then it's a case of building that up. So you can either start with another 15-minute sprint and try to write more, or you can lengthen the amount of time you write to see if you can fit more words in that. Because sometimes what you can find is if you add 5 minutes onto your 15 minutes, you actually get less words because you're more fatigued.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to just in the beginning, take it slow, take it very specific to understand where you're at, what your word counts are, how long you can concentrate for, is a very, very good way to start to look at building, because you can't build unless you know what that foundation is. Like it's the house metaphor. You have to have a stable foundation to then build the
Mm-hmm.
walls, build everything else, and put in the dolphin sprockets, that kind of stuff. So that's my first tip. How about you, Sam?
I think we're going to come at this very differently.
Go. This is good.
First of all, I think you have to ask yourself, like, what is your idea of a high word count? Like, what are you trying to achieve? Why do you need that many words in a day? Or all of the things? Because Dan is right. I can type very quickly and I can get very high word counts when I have a like pressing goal, deadline, or something to prove. Um, but like day to day, I don't like to do it like that because there's pressure on top of the way my brain is working. And like that, honestly, the only way I get those high word counts is when there is pressure on me.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, the first time I realized I could write so much so quickly was Nano. Um, and then I was protecting my crown the year after. Anyway, so I don't have really any tips in the way that Dan does because I never did any of this stuff. I just sat down and just kept writing. Um, so I think it's important to like try and figure out why you want crazy high word counts and what those word counts look like to you. You know, do you want 4,000 days consistently? Do you want it, is like 1,000 words a day what you're after? Because it is all different. And I think if you are looking at something like this so formulaically, then taking Dan's advice is definitely the way to go. Because if you are going to build something up like this, like anything, whether it's running or like weights, whatever, like anything that is to do with building muscle and muscle memory and stamina and all the rest of it, it does start with knowing where your strength is at the minute and then building up from that. And I think especially if you are like aiming for a career in which high word counts and delivering quickly matters. So, for example, ghostwriting, or if you are wanting to kind of, get a bit of that KU cake and
Rapid release.
yeah, like all of that kind of stuff, then this matters. Like, and I'm not going to sit here and argue that it doesn't. It doesn't matter to me, and that's what I'm saying. But I'm just because something doesn't matter to me, it doesn't mean it shouldn't matter to other people. That's not how the world works. If it did, then this world would be very different.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I think just if you are doing it because of like finances, business, your job, all of those kind of things, then it makes sense to take this approach of sitting down and really just looking at your current word counts and how you can improve them. And, just as with, like I say, as with anything, if you're weight training, you don't go like one day and say, okay, the max I can do is like 15, and
Yeah,
then
Dad.
go the next day and go like, I'm going to do 30. No, you'll break your arms. That's not how
Mhm.
this works. So I think patience is a really important thing to practice with this. Patience with yourself, patience with your fingers.
Yeah.
Because like you will break yourself if you just try and go too far too quickly.
Mhm.
Um, like physically and mentally, you will break yourself. So just along with, tracking words and all the rest of it, all the stuff that I do not do because it makes me feel gippy. Um, I think it is important to just make sure that you are looking after yourself physically and mentally and have patience with yourself, because these kind of things are very slow starting, but once you build up the momentum, like a couple of months down the line, you'll be flying.
Mhm.
But you have to have the patience and the stamina and the consistency to get to that point. Um, and without knowing like actually why it's important. Because if it's just to tell people you have high word days, just tell them. Who cares? Like,
Check
big
out my
deal.
spreadsheet with all these numbers I typed.
Like, if the entire point of having, high word counts is so that you can tell other authors that you have them, I would argue that you don't need them. Like, Jesus Christ. Like,
Mhm.
if you're writing just to impress other writers, then I'd say like just sit down and like just have a little chat with yourself, babe.
Should be the readers. Should be the readers.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. I think it's so my journey on word counts basically goes from back in must have been 2014 when I first started writing. I'd literally give myself 15, 20 minutes at the end of my day. And I was at home editing and proofreading at the time. So I'd give myself like 15, 20 minutes on the computer and I'd try and write. And I'd probably get 100 words, 200 words, like in that time. And that felt good. And, oh, excuse me. And arguably at the time, it was good. Um, Fast forward a few years later, and I had a couple of 10,000 word days. We had a write off at one point, and I think I got like
Mhm.
15,
Yeah,
13. It was a lot.
that was ridiculous.
It
That
was a
day
lot, and
was
something I
so
could not do
stupid.
every day. Like it was very
No.
much like must compete.
Yeah.
And obviously there's a big leap there from 200 words in a day to 10,000 plus. And one of the things I think a lot of early writers can do with understanding is that writing gets faster the more you practice. And I don't
Hmm.
just mean the more you practice typing, the more you learn how to tell a story. Because the reason it took so long to begin with was because every word mattered and every sentence mattered. And
Hmm.
I'm not saying that it doesn't now, but I mean in the sense of I was learning how to write.
Yeah.
And when I first learned how to ride a bike, I was wobbling all over the place and I was going slowly. I wasn't bombing it downhill because I wasn't used to it.
I bombed it down a hill. That's how I learned to ride. You know what happened? I crashed into a tree.
There you go.
That's why, to be fair, I was much older than anyone should be to learn to ride a bike, and I had to teach myself. So, there we
There
go.
you go.
Sorry,
I
Dan,
watched
please
my friend
continue.
front flip over his handlebars, so
Oh,
that was fun. But yeah, like when you first start writing, like I was literally like writing a sentence and then reading a book and being like, oh, that's how they do it, and then back here, and then you're looking at how that sentence fits with that and how it feels. And after a while, after like that kind of putting in that labor and practicing and making the quality of your writing better, you begin to get more of a flow of how a story should sound. So now I can write sentences faster because I've developed that muscle. I've built that skill in my head that I kind of, although first drafts are always going to be rough, which is something we can definitely touch on.
yeah.
That I kind of, I'm not worried about how long a paragraph is. I'm not worried about how many full stops I've got in a sentence or how long the sentences are because I can feel my voice and I've practiced enough now to kind of know roughly what I want to say and how I want to say it. And
Hmm.
that doesn't happen in the beginning. Like it was a good few years before that kind of did happen, and that was a good few years of me getting up regularly every morning and putting in the time and writing and writing. And, some people, they have more of a sense of that when they begin. Other people find that a bit more laborious. I certainly did. But yeah, it's only kind of once I get over that now that it becomes easier. And Joe, what kind of illustrated that to me quite a lot is I recently signed up to the For the Words writing software. It's online, which for people that don't know, it's essentially a way to gamify your writing. So you sign up, you build a character. As you type, depending on how many words you type, you can slay monsters, you get points. It's all that kind of stuff. And I was having a bit of fun with it. And so many of the monsters were like, the targets were like, you have to write 50 words in 10 minutes. I was crushing them in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is because it obviously caters for the full breadth of, like, there's a lot of early writers out there, a lot of people sort of still working on that first book. And that really kind of like highlighted that moment to me of like, how differently I was seeing things. And again, as is the theme with my life, like how much I was kind of overdoing or over normalizing the extreme.
Yeah.
So yeah, like once you've kind of put in that time, put in those kind of 10,000 hours, although not necessarily 10,000 hours just to write a bit faster, but understand it's going to be slower to begin with. And if you're trying to compete with people that are doing, 1,000 words an hour, 2,000 words per hour, that might just not be for you right now until you kind of a bit more practiced.
Yeah.
And if you want to practice more, my next tip is prioritize the writing. So find a point in the week that is yours. Find a point in the day that is yours. If you can do it daily, fine. If you can do it once a week, awesome. If you can do it, I know, on a Saturday morning when your daughter's at swimming lessons, awesome. But I hate the phrase make a date with yourself, but pick a time, pick a location, do nothing else. This is the time that this happens. And
follow Neil Gaiman's advice.
Follow Neil Gaiman's advice, which is?
Neil Gaiman says that when it is his writing time, he has, like, essentially his one rule is he must sit in the chair. He must have, I know that he likes to handwrite his first drafts. I know.
No offense to anyone that does. I just do not understand it.
Well, his reasoning, I can't remember it like fully, so I won't try and,
because
I
to
won't
slow
get it
his
right.
mind down.
It makes a lot of sense, like why he does it that way, because he didn't used to. But yeah, so basically his rule is that he must sit in the chair and he is absolutely allowed to not write when he's in that chair, but he cannot do anything else. So his options are sit there and do nothing or write. And he says, some days he does sit there and do nothing, but they're rare, because for the most part, if your options are to do absolutely nothing or write, writing becomes more and more appealing by the second. Yeah.
Or even just another little tip I picked up as well. Just tell yourself I'm going to write for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, I set myself an hour this morning, and an hour can be a long time if you're thinking about the whole hour ahead of you. But if you're struggling, just go, I'll do 2 minutes, and you'll find that 2 minutes turns into 5, sometimes turns into 15. Like, sometimes you get that role, sometimes you don't, but like it at least gives you a little push out of the door. And then the other bit of advice, which I think is my huge number one bit of advice that we use a lot for different things, is like, just give yourself permission to write poor stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
I swear to God, that is what unlocked me.
Yeah, like even now, I've come to realization over the last few months, I've really struggled with this myself, because you release books, you get to a certain point where you feel those expectations on your quality of writing and stuff, and you forget that, like, not everything you write is going to be amazing. And so I am beginning to recognize there's been, everything else aside, there has been a lot of resistance for myself in a fear of what I'm going to write and whether it'll be good and match up to like other things or the standard that I believe I've set myself. And there's just been like a few things that I've seen recently, and just a few reminders where it's just like, you just write your stories. Like, who is it that, like, I can't remember, there was a famous musician that basically wrote like 400 scores and he's known for 2. Like, and you think of, not yourself because you're quite a Neil Gaiman fan, but go to someone who knows Neil Gaiman and they'll probably name one of his books.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a plethora of incredible stuff. Same with Stephen King. Like, people can name like 2 or 3 of his books. He has like 60, 70 books.
Yeah.
Like, not everything you write is going to be a smash hit success. But if you can enjoy the process as you're doing it, and if you can just give yourself permission to know that that first draft doesn't have to be perfect and it can be messy, and
Yeah.
that's what editing is for, and where the magic comes, then you will unlock a lot of that burden of trying to get it right first time, because no one ever
Yeah.
does.
No, and like, nor should they, because if you get to the end of your like first draft and you read it back and you think this is perfect or this is exactly what I wanted, number one, I question your sanity because you've just written, let's say, a 60,000 word novel and you're telling me the first go through it's exactly as you wanted it. That worries me. Um, and honestly, now that I understand editing a little better, because for me, that's where I hit the fucking wall hard, was trying to like look at these words in front of me. I did not understand. And still now, I find it very difficult to try and figure out how I'm supposed to edit. That is something that is very difficult for me. But at the same time, like you say, that, when you stop looking at it as a whole and you start like looking at it in order from the beginning, knowing the kind of things that you want to change and stuff, like there is magic in that. And that is when you can start to actually properly play with it. But the first draft really is it's a roadmap of where your story is going. And I think for most writers, the difference between your first draft and the work that you publish is vast, and it should be. Like I use this analogy a lot, but you don't sketch something out and it's finished. Like during that first kind of putting something down on paper, like you rub bits out, you like figure out the different not spectrums, my God, I'm so tired and ill. Perspectives and all of that stuff. And then if you're going to paint it, my God, like the amount of layers and time that you need in between those layers to let the paint dry and for you to see it and try and figure it out. And there are so many times during that process where you look at it and go, well, this is fucking shit because it's not finished yet. Like you haven't put in the shading, you haven't put in the detail, you haven't like focused on the parts of the picture that like really matter, that you want to stand out against everything else. You haven't, realized that you don't need to paint every single window in that far off skyscraper. Like it's about knowing what you want the story to be and focusing on those things and making them shine. And you can't do that with like one stroke of a brush or like one, round of typing on the keyboard. That's not how it works because there is no craftsmanship in that. And as much as we like to, imagine ourselves as these romantic creative creatures, there is no such thing as someone that sits down and pens something in its perfect first time. Even like the greatest books that you can think of that you love, like the amount of time it took to get there. And I can guarantee you that if the author would to be given another 2 weeks, they would be like, oh my God, thank God there's so many things that I've thought of since I've like that's what art is. It's not about like being touched by the muse and sitting down for, like 3 days in a row and oh the manuscript's done and then you can go out and drink whiskey with your mates. That's not what it is. It's about graft, and there is real like craftsmanship and skill involved, and none of those things come from writing something once and washing your hands of it. Like you get those results by working, and that's the only way that they will develop in you is by constantly going at it. And I don't mean like 24 hours a day every day because you'll
Yeah.
kill yourself, but it is really important to practice, because only through practice do we like continue to progress towards the writer that we hope to be. And you'll never get there,
No, that's
FYI.
the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Like
Like
there's
you'll
no
never get
such
there.
things as masters.
Yeah, you'll normalize it.
Yeah. You'll normalize it, hell. And it also links in with basically a lot of the things that we've spoken about over like every one of these conversations on this podcast, which is there is another layer to everything that you're hearing, that you're reading. So if someone's sitting there and going, well, I write 4,000 words a day, and people go, oh my God, that's amazing. They're probably shit.
Yeah.
They're probably crap. Or they could be very good. Or they might be somewhere in the middle. Like,
Yeah.
saying you have high word counts doesn't equate to the quality of those words.
No.
And it's the magic that comes after that determines, what happens there. And, one of the things that if I'm right in saying that you attribute your first nano to, you did a hell of a lot of prep. You knew what you wanted to write.
Damn
So
right I did.
you probably could have written those words in that time, but they would have been potentially far more messy and less directive. So because you'd done months or weeks, I can't remember how long you said you did, of months of this prep before you'd even hit any concept of doing nano,
Yeah.
it then made those words that you wrote stronger than they would have been,
Because I knew exactly what I wanted to say.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm going to make myself sick a little bit in my mouth and say, like, out of, the whole like planner prepper pantsing bullshit.
Pantsing and plotting.
My first draft has to come from a lot of time finding inspiration, finding images, letting my mind soak in what I want to write, and guarantee the idea that starts the entire thing is not even in the first draft, let alone the finished thing. That's exactly what Air to the Universe is. Air to the Universe started in my head as something called the Magic Chair. Very different. But it was the seed that my brain needed to start this entire thing. And I think I am much more like, if you look at, people that can write really high word counts and can get books out very quickly, and then you go to more kind of traditional authors, as in traditionally published, that might release a book once a year, twice a year, 12 times a year if you like Patterson.
With many, many collaborators.
So many collaborations. Bill Clinton. You
Dolly
want to write a book
Parton.
with me? Dolly Parton. I know, what the fuck. Anyway. Anyway. I'm not good. I've noticed about this. I've noticed this about myself. I think since kind of like joining the whole writing community, is that I'm not good at being rushed, and I will do it in my own goddamn time. And for me, it's not a thing of like, I've been working on this for 10 years and it's my like, no, it'll take as long as it takes. And I won't be always doing it, because I don't care enough about releasing a novel. I don't care enough about releasing anything of any description for it to become everything that I do. It will become it will circle, it will become everything I do for a small amount of time, and then I will be bored. And so then I will have to move on to something else. And that's how I work, which means that likely I will either release a lot of books at once because I've been working on them all.
In
like
bits.
Or, like I'll release a book and then a poetry thing and then a video thing and like, and
You're like
they'll
a fry cook at a service station.
Yeah, thanks. That's the best analogy I've ever had.
8 pans.
Yeah, so I'm a fry cook of creativity. I completely forgot my point after just being called a fry cook at a service station.
It takes as long as it takes. You're not one of these people that
and I think
everything.
Again, it's about figuring out who you are, where it fits, how it fits, and if it is a case of all you want to do is write, like, then you will find some space in your week. And I mean, if you have to like hide a pen and pad in the bathroom, if you are like a single parent of 5 kids and you just like, the only time you get during the day is kind of first thing in the morning, last thing at night, and the occasional bathroom break, like hide a pen and pad in the bathroom and lock the damn door. Hide in your closet.
God
Hide
bless the
from the
bathroom lock.
children. Hide from the children. That's my advice.
Hide your
That's what this episode
kids.
should be called. Hide from the children.
Yeah. Well, yes. So, I mean, there's lots of, I hope, tangible things that people can take away. I think kind of summarizing everything, obviously, it's understanding what kind of writer you are and what kind of
Mm-hmm.
writer you want to be, what stage of your writing journey you're at. You said, what is your why? Like, why is it that you want to write faster? Why is it that you want to build up these big word counts? For quite a few people in our community, the 50K writing camps that we run,
Mm-hmm.
if anything, they've shown people that they don't want to be faster writers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are people, again, in the Discord server who will only write big word counts in November because they like that kind of oomph that comes with being
Yeah.
part of NaNoWriMo and having all these people around you doing a similar challenge. And then for the rest of the year, it's editing or
Mm-hmm.
it's chipping away at planning for the next Nano. So there's
Mm-hmm.
no right path. There never is. There never was. There are ways to increase your word count, and some of those come from, again, picking a date with yourself, trying to build consistency if you can, and finding what your baseline word count is so that you then know what you're going to be improving off of.
Mm-hmm.
And the ultimate one is just practicing. The more you practice, the better you'll get. And you
Mm-hmm.
might not be a 15,000 word person a day. You might be a 200 word person a day. Or, rather than word counts, go down the Stephen King route where, he has the luxury of time on his side, but his whole thing is, I will write
He
4
earned
pages
that
a day.
luxury, though. Let's just say
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. But his whole thing is like, I will write 4 pages a day. I was watching the Brandon Sanderson lectures recently, and his whole thing is like he writes for like I think it's like a 2-hour block in the afternoon, and then he has a break, and then he writes until like 2 in the morning. Like, that's just kind of how he figures it for him. He has, I think, potentially, I'll probably get the numbers wrong, but about 4 hours a day in which he writes, but they're broken up around the other
Mm-hmm.
things that he does in his day, and that's how he's found his success. But again, he also has the luxury of time, of being like a full-time writer. If
Mm-hmm.
you're someone who is juggling 2 jobs, has kids, all that kind of stuff, then hide in the bathroom, pen and paper, get 5 words in. A good toilet break can earn you about at least 36 words. So yeah, there's I think the big thing is, there's a huge culture in particularly self-publishing, independent publishing, where it's all about racing for the words, and it's all about the rapid release and all that kind of stuff. And I guess the argument we're making is, think of the art as well.
Mm-hmm.
If it works for you, awesome. Like, I know someone who comfortably will write 13,000 words a day, five days a week, but that's all she does.
Yeah.
And I know people that don't manage that.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I really want to underline the fact that being able to write 15,000 words a day comfortably is, number one, as you say, because that's all she does. So she's been doing that for a long time, which means that those word counts have gone up and up and up, which is exactly what you've been saying. But number two, not writing that many words in a day is not you failing. Like, I really, really want to underline this. Just because you can do something, it doesn't mean you should. I use this on my son all the time. When he's annoying me, I'm like, I could pick you up and throw you out of the window. It doesn't mean I should.
Mm-hmm.
So just like, again, really know why you want to get these really high word counts, because it comes like, it comes with a cost for most people to like go that hard for that long. Like, most people aren't built to write that way. And if you are, great. But if you're not, great. Like, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, like, no one cares how the book was made. They just want it to be good.
Mm-hmm. It's a very writer thing as opposed to
Yeah, it
like
is.
readers
And I
do not
think
care.
I and I think it's a very self-published thing as well, to be honest. Like you don't ever hear any questions in interviews with traditional authors about how many words they write, generally speaking, a day, because no one cares. Like as someone on the other side, like that was a reader for a long time, like I don't care how many days this took to write. I just want it to be good.
Mm-hmm.
That's your job. Make it good.
Yeah. And the final thing that I'll add that's just popped into my head is reflect. So, if you've been on this journey for a while and you want to pick up your words, kind of like what I was saying when I first started writing, 200 words, maybe 3 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm doing all right compared to that. And again,
Yeah.
speaking as a recovering wordaholic, still struggling with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I got 1,500 words this morning, which compared to a lot of my old stuff is low. But in terms of what I'm happy that I've written, I'm ecstatic. Like, I'm very,
Yeah.
very happy with it. And I'm reminding myself as well that I've not been writing regularly for a while. So it's a place to start.
Yeah. And also it would have taken you like if you were writing, say, 200 words 3 days a week.
3 weeks.
There you go. And that's why we don't normalize, although we absolutely do because we're all human and we do it all the time and it's really annoying.
Yay!
But that's the point. Like what you wrote this morning would have taken you 3 weeks when you started.
I remember the first time I got my first 1,000 word day. I remember messaging Luke and being like, I did it.
Yeah, because it's a big fucking deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like 1,000 words doesn't sound, well, I don't know whether it does sound like a lot to people or not. Numbers, I don't have a head for
I mean,
numbers. So,
1,000 word essays were awful when I was at college and uni. I was like, 1,000 words, that's going to take me weeks.
oh, yeah, no, I never had that.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay.
Yeah. 10,000 word dissertation. Mate.
Yeah, well, that's
No.
because you went to university to study drama, you moron.
With English.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Turn of the screw. Yeah. Yeah, I guess we'll wrap it up there. But just suffice to say, follow your own path.
Yeah.
It's your journey to take,
Yeah.
and just be kind to yourself. Like, wherever you're at now, you could improve. Do you
Uh-huh.
want to improve? Do you have that time? Is it going to help you? Are
Yeah.
you already doing the most that you can? That's a conversation you can have with yourself. Or if you want to jump into our Discord and have that conversation with us, what a segue, then throw yourself over into activatedauthors.com/join.
Yeah.
And I guess that brings us to the end of the episode. I am going to plug one of the freebies that we do have on Activated Authors, which is our self-publishing checklist.
Yeah.
So you can download it absolutely for free, as well as our Activated Authors Matrix over on activatedauthors.com. And the self-publishing checklist gives you everything you need to look at to know that you are publishing in the way that you should publish. So it's all the steps labeled for you so that you can tick it off and just go, yep, I've formatted, yes, I've edited, yes, I've got the book cover, that kind of stuff. So grab one for free at activatedauthors.com/free. Or it's in the tab. Cool. A massive thank you to you, the listeners, for tuning in. We appreciate you and the time you choose to spend with us each and every week. And as always, if you're looking to level up your writing and activate your author career, head on over to activatedauthors.com to find out all about our community, our resources, and everything else that we've got going on. One more time from myself and from Sam, we will see you next week.
I would just like to say, while while manners might maketh the man, word count does not maketh the writer. Goodbye.
Snolly gobs.
Activate your energy.